Imagine you're at a flea market, a dusty antique shop, or maybe just cleaning out your grandmother's kitchen cabinets. You see it pushed to the back, behind some chipped ceramic plates. It's an old cast iron skillet. It's heavy, it's black, and it's probably covered in a layer of greasy dust, or even worse, a crust of orange rust. Your first thought is almost certainly, that thing is a piece of junk. It's a rusty, dirty old pan. I can get a brand new one at Walmart for $20. You might see it as nothing more than a tetanus risk, a relic from a time before modern, lightweight, non-stick cookware. But before you walk away from that pan, you need to stop and understand what you could be looking at. What if that pan was forged over 100 years ago by a legendary American foundry? What if its cooking surface, hidden under that grime, is milled to a perfectly smooth, almost glass-like finish that modern pans can't replicate? What if that single rusty skillet is a rare, highly sought-after model that chefs and collectors would pay hundreds or even thousands of dollars to own? Today, we are heating things up and scraping away the rust to reveal the incredible history, the superior craftsmanship, and the surprising value of vintage American cast iron cookware. In our modern world of disposable goods, the cast iron skillet is an anomaly. It's a tool that doesn't wear out. It gets better with age. For over a century, cast iron was the heart of the American kitchen. It fried the chicken, baked the cornbread, and seared the steaks that fed a nation. And during the golden age of American manufacturing, from the late 1800s to the mid 1960s, the companies that made this cookware were not just factories, they were centers of industrial artistry. Companies with names that are now legendary among collectors: Griswold, Wagner Ware, Wapak, Favorite Piqua Ware, were engaged in a fierce competition to produce the highest quality cookware in the world. They used high-grade iron, innovative casting techniques, and a level of hand finishing that has been lost to time. Then, as the world changed, with the rise of Teflon and cheaper, lighter pans, these magnificent pieces were often relegated to the back of a cabinet or the damp corner of a garage. But now, a massive cultural rediscovery is happening. A passionate community of chefs, home cooks, and collectors has realized what our great-grandparents knew all along. These old pans are simply better. They are lighter, smoother, and perform in a way that most modern cast iron can't touch. This realization has created a booming collector's market where that rusty old skillet you inherited might just be the most valuable and useful treasure in your entire house. So, how do you tell if you're holding a priceless piece of culinary history or just a common modern pan? The secrets are cast right into the iron itself. You just have to learn how to read them. The first and most important factor you need to understand is the manufacturing difference. This is the core of why vintage is so valuable. When you pick up a brand new modern cast iron pan from a big box store, you'll notice the cooking surface is rough and pebbly, almost like sandpaper. This is because modern pans are cast in sand molds and are left with that rough sand-textured finish. They work, but they require a thick layer of seasoning to become even remotely non-stick. Vintage American cast iron, however, went through an extra crucial step. After the pan was cast, it was put on a machine and the entire cooking surface was stone milled or polished down to a perfectly smooth, almost satin-like finish. This glass-smooth surface is the number one reason vintage cast iron is so revered. Food doesn't stick to it. It heats more evenly, and it's a joy to cook on. Furthermore, the casting techniques of the Golden Age were so advanced that these old pans are often significantly lighter than a modern pan of the same size. So, the first test is always the touch test. If you run your hand over the cooking surface and it feels incredibly smooth, you're on the right track. The next critical factor is the maker's mark and logo. The great foundries were incredibly proud of their work, and they marked their pans with distinctive logos. Identifying this logo is the key to unlocking a pan's history and value. The big two that you are most likely to find are Griswold and Wagner Ware. Griswold Manufacturing, based in Erie, Pennsylvania, is considered by most collectors to be the absolute pinnacle of quality. Their most famous logo is a cross inside a double circle with the word Griswold at the top. This is the classic, highly sought-after mark. Wagner Ware, from Sydney, Ohio, was Griswold's biggest competitor and produced equally fantastic cookware. Their most common logo is the name Wagner Ware in a stylized arc over the words Sydney O. Finding a pan with one of these clear, crisp logos is an immediate sign that you have a high-quality, collectible piece. You also need to examine the bottom of the pan for other clues. Many older pans, made before the widespread adoption of electric stoves, have a heat ring. This is a raised ring around the outer edge of the bottom of the pan. It was designed to help the pan sit securely in the eye of a wood-burning or coal stove. A pan with a heat ring is almost always an older, more desirable model. You will also find a model number, which is usually a single large number, like 8 for a 10-inch skillet, and a pattern number, which is a smaller multi-digit number that was for the foundry's internal use. Finally, look at the handle. The shape of the handle is often a distinctive signature of the maker. Griswold handles have a unique, almost oval-shaped hole. Wagner handles have a more spade-shaped hole. Learning these subtle differences can even help you identify unmarked pans. Now, let's talk about the legends. These are the holy grail pieces that every collector dreams of finding, the rarest and most valuable examples of the craft. The undisputed king of cast iron collecting is the Griswold Spider Skillet. This is not just a pan, it's an artifact of almost mythical status. Before Griswold adopted their famous cross logo, their earliest skillets, made in the late 1800s by their predecessor company, featured a stunningly detailed, embossed logo of a spider in its web. The name Erie, for Erie, Pennsylvania, is often present. These pans are incredibly rare. They represent the very beginning of the Griswold legacy. Finding a genuine spider skillet in any condition is a monumental discovery. A clean, uncracked example can be a 5-figure piece of iron, one of the most valuable kitchen items in the world. Just below the spider in rarity are the earliest pans marked ERIE. These were made by the same company before they even used the spider logo. These pans are famous for their incredibly thin, lightweight casting and their distinctive, almost delicate-looking handles. They are prized by both collectors and serious cooks for their exceptional performance. Another top-tier category is any pan with a rare Griswold logo. For a period in the 1920s, Griswold used a logo where the name was written in a distinctive italicized font, known to collectors as the slant logo. A pan with a slant logo is much rarer and more valuable than the same pan with the later, more common block logo. But the grails aren't just skillets. The great foundries produced a huge variety of cast iron items. Some of the rarest and most valuable are the specialty molds and pans. Griswold, for example, made a famous cake mold in the shape of a lamb, known as the lamb cake mold. They also made intricate waffle irons with high and low bases, pop-over pans, and even cast iron mailboxes and spittoons. Finding one of these unusual marked pieces is always a fantastic score. Okay, finding a 5-figure spider skillet is a once-in-a-lifetime event, but don't be discouraged. There are countless other accessible treasures out there that are still incredibly valuable as both collectibles and as superior cooking tools. The most common treasure you are likely to find is a standard Griswold or Wagner Ware skillet from the 1920s to the 1950s. A classic number 8, 10-inch skillet from one of these makers, with a clear logo and a smooth cooking surface, is a fantastic find. While it may not be a holy grail, it is still a highly desirable piece that can be worth anywhere from $50 to $150 or more, and it will be the best skillet you ever cook on. Another very important category is the unmarked vintage pan. During the Great Depression, to sell cookware at a lower price point through hardware stores, the big foundries like Griswold and Wagner would often produce pans without their main logo on them. However, these pans were made using the exact same high-quality patterns and iron as their marked counterparts. An expert collector can identify an unmarked Wagner or Griswold by looking at the specific shape of the handle, the font of the model number, or the style of the heat ring. These unmarked pans are a fantastic way to get a top-tier vintage cooking experience for a fraction of the price of a marked one. And don't forget about Lodge. While modern Lodge pans have the rough sandcast finish, the company has been making cast iron for over a century. Vintage Lodge pans, especially those made before the 1960s, are excellent high-quality pieces. The older, unmarked Lodge skillets can often be identified by three small notches in the heat ring on the bottom of the pan. A three-notch Lodge is a fantastic, durable, American-made pan that represents a huge step up from modern cookware. So, you're at a flea market and you spot a stack of old, rusty skillets. How do you check them for treasure? Here is your quick, essential field guide. Step 1. The wobble test. This is the first and most important test you must perform. Place the pan on a perfectly flat surface, like a concrete floor or a sturdy table. Put your hand on the handle and try to rock it back and forth. Does it sit perfectly flat, or does it wobble? An old pan that has been overheated can warp, causing it to bow up in the middle or develop a spin. A warped pan will not heat evenly on a modern flat top or electric stove, and this makes it almost worthless to a user. A pan must sit flat. Step 2. Check for cracks. Cast iron is very strong, but it is also brittle. If a hot pan was doused with cold water, or if it was dropped, it can develop hairline cracks. Inspect the entire pan very carefully, especially where the handle meets the body and around the rim. A tiny, almost invisible crack can render a pan useless for cooking, as it will expand with heat and eventually break. Tap the pan gently with your knuckle. A good pan will have a clear bell-like ring. A cracked pan will have a dull, thudding sound. Step T3. Look past the rust. This is a key piece of knowledge. A pan that is covered in surface rust can look like a complete disaster, but it is almost always salvageable. Rust is not a deal breaker. In fact, a thick layer of rust can often protect the original iron underneath. The process of restoring cast iron, using either a lye bath to strip old seasoning or an electrolysis tank to remove rust, is a well-established hobby. A rusty pan that is flat and uncracked can often be restored to a like-new beautiful condition. Do not be afraid of rust. Step 4. Identify and value. Once you have a pan that is flat and uncracked, it's time to play detective. Look for the logo and any other markings. Take clear photos of the top, bottom, and handle. Your best resource for valuation is eBay. Search for the exact brand and model number you've identified, and then filter the results by sold items. This is the most accurate way to see what people are actually paying for that specific pan in the current market. For identification help, there are fantastic and very active Facebook groups dedicated to cast iron collecting, like Cast Iron Cookware and the Cast Iron Collector, where you can post photos and get expert opinions. A vintage cast iron skillet is so much more than just a piece of cookware. It is a piece of American industrial history you can hold in your hand. It is a family heirloom, a tool that has seasoned over generations, absorbing the memories of countless family meals. It is a testament to a time when things were built with pride, designed to last forever, and to get better with every use. So, the next time you see a rusty, forgotten pan at a yard sale or in your own basement, don't see it as junk. See it as a potential treasure. Flip it over, look for a logo, feel the smoothness of its surface. You might just find a beautiful, functional piece of American history that is ready to be brought back to life, to cook for your family for the next 100 years. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of vintage cast iron, please hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and tell us in the comments about the oldest or most beloved piece of cast iron in your family.